Hi, you can call me Enas. I like to make Dota 2 hero suggestions. Today I'm covering Giant of Servitude. He's received some criticism on his second and third spells, but I personally think he could be playtest worthy and fills a new niche that isn't already in Dota. Giant of Servitude is a melee carry durable support. This means that he scales well with items and deals high damage mid to late game. He can be very hard to kill, and oftentimes his strategy for playstyle is allowing his teammates to get last hits over himself in terms of priority, because he can scale off of their strengths. His first spell, a durable complement, passively, and it has passive and an active. The passive component is that you get health regen, armor, and magic resistance based on the strongest right clicker auto attacker on your team that's near you. This means that you get 5, 10, 15, or 20% their attack damage as health regen per second, meaning if they had 100 auto attack damage, then you would get 5, 10, 15, or 20 health regen per second just from being near them. You also are granted 0.8, 1.6, 2.4, or 3.2 bonus armor for every 100 attack speed they have. You are granted 1, 2, 4, or 8% their attack speed in additional magic resistance. So if they had 300 attack speed, you would get 24% magic resistance. You may alt cast this spell at any point to gain the bonuses from your own stats at 75% the effectiveness. This means it's almost always better to get your stats from a teammate, but if they're dead or not around you, you can use it from your own stats and still have this passive benefiting you. The active component of this skill is you shoot a projectile in target direction up to 400 units, so it's a very short range projectile. It goes at 1000 units per second, and it aggroes any enemy you hit with it. These enemies will be aggroed to you for 1.5, 2, 2.5, or 3 seconds long, depending on your current level of the spell. The mana cost of the spell is 100 to shoot the projectile only, and the cooldown is 12 seconds. Only affecting the active component. The Augmented Scepter upgrade for this spell is that every time an enemy hero who is within 350 units of you takes a damage instance from your allied heroes, including yourself, all of them within 350 units are aggroed to you for one attack. This has a 2.5 second cooldown for reapplying to the same units. This means after they have attacked you once, they have 2.5 seconds before you can do the same effect on them again. Your second spell, Combat Blessing, you target an allied unit within 700 units cast range, or yourself. They are granted a buff for 6 seconds that is 2, 4, 6, or 8 times the total level of all enemy and neutral creeps within 600 units of you. So this means you give the buff to yourself or an ally, and then they get a buff of attack speed and damage based on the total level of all enemy and neutral creeps times this value. For example, if you are in a full creep wave of an enemy creep wave, they have 1 ranged unit and 3 melee. So each melee unit is level 3, so that's a total of 9, plus 2 from the ranged unit, which makes it 11. So 11 times 2 at their first level, you will get 22 damage and 22 attack speed to whoever you buff with this spell. You can alt cast this spell in order to get the bonuses from enemy heroes and Roshan instead of creep levels, making it effective in a team fight or somewhere where there aren't very many creeps, as well as near Roshan. Roshan starts at level 30. This means that just by being near Roshan, within 600 units of him, you can buff your teammate with 60 attack damage and attack speed for 6 seconds. This is extremely powerful and would leverage trying to do Roshan fairly early in the game. Perhaps it's too strong and it needs to be nerfed, but I will let playtesting take the ruling on that. Mana cost is 90, and the cooldown is 18, 16, 14, or 12 seconds long. Your third spell, Up for a Challenge. All enemy and neutral creeps inside a 400 unit radius area of effect you target get their gold bounty, damage output, and health increased by 20, 30, 40, or 50%. In other words, you make the enemy creeps or neutral creeps stronger, but make them worth more gold. Making them more efficient at getting you resources, because it amplifies how many resources you can have at a time. All units affected by this, all enemy or neutral units that are affected by this, gain 1 level upon cast. They are all resummoned. This means any buffs on them are taken off. This buff lasts for 30 seconds. It has 4 charges, this spell, and this spell will stack with itself, compounding in effect. In other words, let's say you have this spell maxed out and it gives you 50% bonus. So after one use, everything will be at 150% their normal values. After the second use, they will be at 225% rather than 200. That's what it means by compounding in effect. The mana cost of using the spell is only 20 mana, and the replenish time of each charge is 60 seconds, or if the buff wears off. For example, if you buff a camp and then find it's too strong for you to take, and you still want to keep the resources of that camp, you can wait for the buff to wear off after the 30 seconds, and it'll come back to its normal stats. That way you don't lose creep camps just from buffing the wrong ones. Any units that are buffed from this spell lose their buff if they attack a building. This means you cannot buff enemy creeps, griefing your team and making them take buildings faster. Neutral creeps who are buffed with this spell give you the kills they would get. So this means you can sneak up on an enemy who's trying to take their ancient camp and buff it 4 times and then or several times, and then they die to it and you get the kill. Creeps buffed by this spell are resummoned as a higher level, as I mentioned. Once the 30-second timer runs out, they revert to their original state, regardless of how many times you've buffed them, although every time you buff it, it'll reset the duration of the spell to 30 seconds. You cannot buff Roshan with this spell. Your ultimate, Time Well Spent, you toggle it and it's a channel, which makes time pass faster for allies and slower for enemies, greatly shifting the tides of battle in your team's favor, so long as you're channeling. All within a 600 unit radius. The mana cost of the spell is 200 per second, so it's very hefty, and it has a 5-second cooldown, so you can use it very often. The Aghanim Shard upgrade for this spell is that anytime you channel a spell or item, enemies within 500 units of you are slowed by 35% in movement speed and 50 in attack speed. So essentially, what does Giant of Servitude do? He can be a tank for a high DPS ally, preferably a carry, so that they don't have to worry about buying survivability. They just buy the damage, and you get the survivability from them. You can force a unit to attack you because you're the tank for the team. You can buff your teammates with attack speed and damage, which feeds right back into your health regen, armor, and magic resistance. You can increase the strength of neutral creeps, and increasing their level, which makes you get a better bonus from Combat Blessing. And you can make all fights a bit more turned in your favor, based on slowing enemies and speeding up your allies. As far as talent tree, you can get level 10, you get Combat Blessing plus 2 seconds duration, or 200 mana. Level 15, you can get Up for a Challenge, also increases experience dropped by the same amount as the gold bounty health and damage output. You can cast spells and move while channeling, very helpful for your ultimate, as well as teleporting scrolls. Level 20, Time Well Spent mana cost is reduced by 30 per second, making it 170 per second instead, or you can get 40 more movement speed. At level 25, you can get Up for a Challenge grants doubled effects on allied creeps without them losing the buff versus structures, making you an amazing pusher. Alternatively, you could get Combat Blessing now always counts both creeps and heroes, making all your rebuffs stronger more often. As far as stats, you start with 680 health, you start with 303 mana, you start with 41 to 51 damage, and 2 armor. Your starting int is 19 with 1.9 growth. You start with 22 agility and 2.2 growth, and then you are a strength hero, starting with 24 strength and 3.1 growth per level. You start with 300 move speed, and yeah, that's Giant of Servitude. I hope you like him. Thanks for watching my video. If you have any questions, comments, or critique, leave it in the comment section. I will leave a link to Giant of Servitude's Dota concept page in the doobly-doo. I hope you have a good day, and thanks for watching my video. Goodbye.